on in, everyone. Come on in because we are here for a quick conversation. I don't have no shows I'm reviewing, but I got a lot of questions as I'm internet surfing. And every time I have a question, I got to come back to y'all to ask you, what do y'all think? My question for today is, have y'all heard that Lateris Whitfield from My Future Wifey is now engaged? Congratulations. Congratulations. We are happy for, I want to say the both of them, but we don't know who she is. We don't know who she is. And this is what's leading me to be sitting here in front of y'all right now asking you, is this the new thing? A wife reveal? Is giving the Masked Singer. It really, really is giving the Masked Singer. Now, listen. First of all, before y'all get mad at me and say, leave these people alone, I'm happy for him. I'm happy for her, whoever she is. I'm always happy for love. I'm always happy people are getting married and all that other kind of good stuff. I really, really am happy. But I'm going to tell you this. I don't get it. And I know I don't have to get it because I know I'm not the one getting married. I know there's no requirement for me to get it, but that doesn't mean I can't sit here and be confused and be bewildered. And that still allows me the right to come here and talk to y'all and say, I don't get it, is giving me the Masked Singer. Now listen. Lateris Whitfield, if none of you know who he is, he has a very popular podcast called My Future Wifey. And he started this podcast as part of his healing journey. If you ever know his story, it's about he was married before, he got divorced, he cheated on his wife. I think he even has like an adopted son, or he had fosters kids. Really heartwarming stories. He now has this podcast where he's kind of healing out loud. So he says, you know what? It was me. I messed up in the marriage. I cheated. I need to heal. I need to grow. I need to take accountability. And so this podcast was sort of like birthed out of his own life experiences. And so he tries to use his podcast to, you know what? I don't know what he uses the podcast. I ain't gonna lie. I don't really know what he uses the podcast. I've seen different things on the podcast. In some ways, I think is promoting healthy love, but I've seen some very unhealthy stuff on his podcast before. So, hey, I don't know. I guess you could go and read what he wrote the intentions of. But the reason why I'm here today is to talk about this Masked Singer wife, the wife reveal. And like I said before, I've never seen nothing like this before. So I got questions. First of all, my question is, does this mean she don't get no engagement party? When will the reveal happen? Will they remove the veil at the altar, or will she come around a corner and we'll see who she is? And this is what I didn't understand. I'm gonna say this is what I didn't understand. I read parts of it, and we're gonna go through a little bit what he said, that he wanted to protect his wife and not subject her to public scrutiny. And I'm thinking, I think this created like more scrutiny. You're gonna have all kind of sleuths trying to figure out who she is. So I'm wondering, is it really protection? Then I didn't really understand where, if you're trying to be private, how then are you doing interviews with Essence Magazine? You get a whole photo shoot, you get interviews, you get all the congratulations, the best wishes, you get it all, and she gets nothing. Now, I know, typically men miss out on a lot of the wedding stuff. A lot of times, a lot of the wedding is about the lady, it's about her ring, it's about, she said yes to the dress, it's about all her girlfriends congratulating her, it's about her bachelorette party, it's about the woman, the woman, the woman, the woman. Well, let me tell you, Lateris Whitfield has said, nope, nope, nope. It's going to be about me. Because I guess he could call it protection. I guess it is protection when people put you in the background and nobody knows who you are. Here, get behind me. Let me do all the photo shoots and show what I did. And you can sit over here behind me and just know that I'm protecting you. Hey, but you know what? She obviously is okay with it. This is what I'm thinking. She's obviously okay with it because it's going on. You know, I remember when Laterrence Whitfield had said something else. It was long back. I remember he said that he had bought his dream home in preparation for his future wife. And I thought, you just said it was your dream home. How is that in preparation for her? Anyone out here, have you gone house hunting for a house with your husband? And let me ask you, if your husband had gone out and bought a house all by himself, would it have been the house that you now live in, or did you have to influence your husband? See, this is where I get a little bit confused, and this is where I think fantasy goes awry with reality. In one way, I'm very, very, very happy for people who find love. But in another way, I don't like when false narratives and pie in the sky and fairy tales are created for women, and then that becomes what they need to have in order to get married. I kind of fight against that a bit out here in the world because I know a lot of people's mantra is, I don't want to settle, I don't want to settle. And then what comes along is you have a story where Laterrence Whitfield has a masked singer bride that no one can see. And what he says is, look, I bought a house for you. I bought this diamond ring for you. Then what I'm going to do is I'm going to reveal you at the wedding. I'm going to live stream the wedding. You're going to be revealed. And women are just eating all this up. I know y'all are. I know y'all are out there eating this up. And but in all this, I still can't help but to see what I see. And what I see is it really isn't private. The only difference between this display of a wedding and the fanfare is that the woman is hidden, but the man is still up front. I don't see anything different. So I don't see privacy. I don't see protection. What I see is you sit back here and let me shine, and I'll reveal you at the very end. I mean, I know the woman got some girlfriends that hopefully she was able to tell her girlfriends. Can she at least celebrate? Can she tell anybody? Does she even have a ring on her finger? Or is this Love is Blind where you got to walk around and pretend like you know? They don't even have to pretend. What does the woman have to do to keep this secret? Do people have to sign NDAs? Do they know? Does she have to limit the number of people she tells that she's engaged to? I guess Laterrence gets to tell everybody he's engaged, but does she have to keep quiet, or does she have to say, I am engaged, but I can't tell you who? How does a wife reveal work? I'm new to this, people. I am very, very new to this. Is this going to be the new fantasy of women to get married? Are they now going to be saying, I don't want to settle, and unless a man does to me and for me what Laterrence has done for his wife, which is a wife reveal, I'm not settling for anything less. Is this the new gold standard? This right here. So let's look at a little bit how this kind of played out. First of all, let me find where he first talked about the fact that he was engaged and what the post was he wrote on Instagram. Because, y'all, he said, last year, I boldly professed that I would be married by the end of 2025. Faith requires action, so I moved with attention. I think this is where we're supposed to applaud. I think this is one of the lines we're supposed to applaud. Great. You moved with intention. Thank you. You've often heard me say, friend to fiance. Well, a beautiful Black queen I met a year and a half ago, once just a platonic friend seeking relationship advice, has become the woman who will soon carry my last name. So she was a friend, a platonic friend that moved to fiance, and now she is lucky enough to carry my last name. It's very slight, y'all. If you're not a really good, keen reader, it might kind of go over your head. It might go over your head. But I always talk about motivations. And like I said, I like LaTerrence Whitfield. I've enjoyed many of his shows. Some of them I haven't enjoyed. But you know what? I think he's providing some worth out here with his podcast. But I can't lie and tell you, it sounds a bit self-serving. I'm sorry to say it. And it sounds as if the spotlight should be reserved for him. I'm struggling with it, everyone. I'm not going to lie. I'm struggling with it. He says her identity will remain a mystery until she walks down the aisle. And he said, because you've walked this journey with me, I think he's speaking to us, the audience, it only makes sense to invite you to the wedding virtually. Get ready for the live stream of a love story fulfilled. Oh, the ring, crafted with precision and purpose by the Philadelphia Diamond Company. It deserves its own spotlight. So the ring got a spotlight and the fiance don't. The ring you picked out, that you bought. I think this is where we're supposed to applaud again. It's a lot of applause. And then he writes down here, at Netflix, at Kinetic Content, let's make a show. Can it be any more obvious? Can it be more? And let me tell you, when it's this obvious to me, I'm wondering, it's so crafted, it's so staged, it's so curated. I really just hope this is what the woman wants. I really do. And it is. I'm sure she went along with it. I'm sure he's not doing this without her. And if you scroll through his Instagram, it's a lot of lovely, my present has finally caught up with the future, and it's you are here. I feel settled without settling. My soul rests in your love. More pictures. Thank you for loving my children like they're yours, and for proving that loving me means loving all of me. You are a gift without a return receipt, and I will handle you with reverence, with care, with intention. It's just all so lovely. The Lord is granting me the ultimate do-over, and I will love you with precision. Who wouldn't have thought that, what is this? Cali Worship Booking? Cali Worship. Oh, that's the Cali Worship Booking. I think that's a church. Dear Future Wifey podcast would turn into me deserving to book you. He done booked you for life. And it would be my greatest honor to take you from friend to fiance. So now, as I kneel before you in love and submission, friend to fiance, my Black queen, the love of my life, will you marry me? And then we see the ring. It's beautiful. It is absolutely gorgeous. So like I told you, I'm happy. I'm happy for her. I'm happy for anyone who fulfills a dream, but I'm not going to lie. It feels a bit self, uh, I don't know, self-focused. I know the intent is to make her the focus, but she not the focus, Lateris. All this right here, I know you're trying to say you're honoring her, but all this right here is on you. Most of it is on you. Now, when Lateris did this interview, you know what? One of the things I always like to hear people's stories. I love to hear people's love story. When I say love story, I love to hear from the very beginning, like what made you fall in love with a person? What attracted you to that person? How did it happen? Was it you? Did you always know? Did you know from the beginning? And what I will tell you is, and let me tell you, I love asking these questions. If I'm just on vacation and my husband and I, we meet another couple, we always swap and exchange love stories of how we met. And I will tell you that 9 out of 10 times, it is the man in the relationship that knew before the woman that he wanted that woman to be his wife. I will tell you that 9 out of 10 times, it is the woman who said, I didn't know if I would marry him or he was going to be the one, but he knew before me. 9 out of 10 times, it is the man who decided more quickly than the woman. And 9 out of 10 times, it is the woman who said, at first, I just wanted to be friends, but he kind of just kept pressing me, asking me out, doing this, doing that. And then that's kind of how we got where we are. But I've never really heard a platonic friendship with a man and a woman. And I'm not saying it doesn't happen, because I'm sure it happens. Nothing is absolute. I've never really heard that earlier on, it was the woman who wanted the man, and then they entered a platonic relationship. And then later on, the man said, kind of like, you grew on me. I'm just telling you from my experience. And Lateris, because he's intentional, maybe his experience is different. Well, obviously it's different, because what he shares with us in his Essence magazine is that he prophesied that he would be married in 2025. He had a definite date. He said, this was the day I'm going to find me a bride. And so I do agree with the intentional part, because once a man knows that he wants to get married and is ready to get married, it typically doesn't take him long to find the woman he wants to marry. It just doesn't. Once he decides he wants to get married, most men can find their women fast. Now, I know a lot of men out here saying it's hard to find. That's only when men are kind of wrapped up into sometimes a lot of fantasy of what a woman should be. And I'll tell you this, when I talked about, I like some of Lateris' shows and some of them I don't like. The shows I didn't like were the shows in which it put a lot of pressure on the women to be this perfect woman, right? And I know they never called it a perfect woman. They often were calling it a godly woman. But what always really kind of made me not like all the shows, where there were always people trying to pretend like they were the perfect wife, the perfect person. And that also, to me, felt like creating unrealistic expectations. Because let me tell you something, and let me tell you this over and over again. Marriage is really not about loving the parts of your partner that are perfect. Marriage is really about finding a way to love and still love your partner, even through those moments of imperfection. So when we constantly focus on all the good things of a person, the perfection parts, unfortunately, once you get in marriage, what ends up tearing you apart are not the parts that you loved about your wife or your husband. It becomes the parts that you didn't like. So I'm always really cautious of people over fantasizing marriage and over fantasizing the perfectness, the correct way for a woman to be. Because I think what it does is it creates unrealistic expectations for men when they're looking for women. right? And that's what I sometimes see on Laterish's show, that it puts pressure on the women sometimes to be this woman. And then that's what will get this man. And then also in this flip side, I see a bit of fantasizing, creating a fantasy moment by Laterish on his wife. Now, I'm sure she's all that. I'm sure she's a whole bag of chicken with some fries. And she's a wonderful and beautiful and caring person. I just hope that Laterish, goodness, Laterish, Laterish. There's just so many contradictions in the I want to keep this private, but I'm doing interviews, I'm doing photo shoots, I'm tagging Netflix and the producing company to do a wedding special. I'm showing the ring. I'm doing all this, but I want to keep it private. No, really, you're just keeping the bride private for a reveal, for a mass singer reveal. It's just a bit odd to me. Odd to me. And like I said, it doesn't matter if it's odd to me. So none of you need to drop down in my comment and say, what difference does it make? You not getting married? I know all that. You're not telling me nothing new. You're not telling me nothing new. But like I've always told people, this is my YouTube channel and I can come here to talk to y'all about things. And this is what I'm talking about today. Now, so when you read this article, in essence, it talks about that, not only the Dear Future Wifey letters that he has written to this future wife. Who else did this? Y'all remember the guy on Married at First Sight? He did the same thing. He wrote a future letter, future songs, future everything. And then when he did get married on Married at First Sight, he never read any of the poems nor sang any of the songs to the young lady. We know Laterish is not going to do that, because I think he's even tagging, what is the singer? I don't forgot the man's name. I'll have to put up his picture once I get ready to edit this video. But anyway, he's already saying that his theatrics of hiding the bride is creating an excitement in the air. And people are digging for info, and he's loving it. He loves it. He loves that the people are digging for info to figure out who this woman is, the woman he said he wanted to keep it private and protect. Now what the people are doing is they're digging. They're digging and speculating who could it be. Okay. This don't seem private nor protective, but okay. I'm rolling with it. I am rolling with it. He said that the privacy and anonymity are so important because while people are celebrating, a lot of times people try to destroy. So I guess, okay. I guess he means like people would attack the woman. If people knew who the bride was, they would attack the bride. I'm not so sure they would attack the bride. I think most people, I don't know, let me not say that, because it is true. People do try to do that. But I guess my preference would have been, if you wanted to really protect the marriage, the engagement, then you both would have stayed silent. I guess that's the point I'm trying to make. Like, I get the privacy. I get to wanting to protect. I get how social media is. But I was just thinking, then why wouldn't both of you be protective? Why would you go public and do the photo shoot and the interviews and the boasting and all this other kind of stuff? But then she doesn't do that. I think that's the part where I'm kind of confused by, but I totally get the part about how social media can be horrible and really rude and mean. And he said that he wants to make sure that, he said he had a guest on his podcast recently, Jerry Flowers, who said, make sure that you don't have fingerprints in the cement before it dries. And what that means is sometimes you can have other people's touch on your relationship before you cement the deal. So I guess what he's saying is, before you close the deal, you don't want too many people to know that you're kind of striking the deal, because they can come in and kill the deal. That's giving me like no one wants. Oh, is that saying like if we knew who the bride was, there could be other women or people who would come the bride and say like, girl, I don't know why you marrying Latarius Whitfield because I was just sleeping with him last week. Is oh my God, is that what we're talking about? Like if you are engaged, I guess the deal ain't cemented. And so you don't want any interference in that. Okay. It's saying, I look at our marriage as something that will cement our covenant and our relationship. And so you can't get all these other people's fingerprints in it while attempting to dry and fortify what we're trying to build. Wow. I don't want any interference in the marriage while we're trying to build the marriage. Got it. Totally agree. So I'm still wondering, why would you not keep the door entirely shut and not even talk about it? Why would you open the door to this and then say, I'm trying to keep certain people out of it? I do believe, and I'm not going to say this played a part into him getting married in 2025 with the intentionality. I do believe it was going to become increasingly difficult for men like Latarius to constantly have podcasts about wives and what it takes to be a wife and all this other kind of stuff, and they're all single. I do find it a bit difficult talking to or seeing older men. I'm not talking about young men who are still very young, looking for, say, their wife, and they're starting to navigate their life, men who are in their 20s or even men who say even their early 30s. But when I see older men, and I mean men in their 40s and 50s, and they're not married, but yet they give a whole lot of advice about finding a bride, it oftentimes bothers me, because being an older woman, having seen a lot in this world, men are the actual ones who propose to women. They are. Most women can't propose to men, which means most women have to wait for a man to come and say, will you marry me? But with men, you always have the option of finding your bride, your mate. And just like Latarius says, if you're intentional, you should be able to find a bride if you're intentional. So when I see men who are 40 and 50, sometimes even 60 years old, saying they want to get married, but they can't find a bride, I typically don't believe it. I don't believe it, because if you are intentional, you will find her. So I believe that with the popularity of Latarius's show, he was going to begin losing credibility if he continued to remain single. It's no different from how people look upon like single pastors, right? It is, you got, after a certain point in time, you got to walk the walk. You just can't talk the talk. And initially, I think people do give you latitude, like we knew he was on a healing journey. But after a while, there would have been a lot of scrutiny on him saying, well, you're telling everybody else how to find a bride or what to do this. Why haven't you found one? This is the problem that people have with Dr. Cheyenne Bryant. That once you get a person who says they are an expert, or this is their genre, this is their expertise, but yet they haven't made it happen in their own life, they lose credibility. And so part of this marriage is also, I believe, going to help him in his business, because he could lose credibility if he kept remaining a single man out here, making all the women feel good about themselves and about the prospects of finding a man like him, but never choosing one of those women, you see? So I'm glad he finally pulled the trigger, but I'm going to tell you, it is giving a bit of some self-serving ways. I'm not going to lie. I mean, he's an entertainer. So, most entertainers, they like the spotlight. So he probably is no different. And that doesn't mean he's a bad person. It just means it's just a part of his personality characteristics. Let's just put it that way. So he tells this story about how they met. He says he was at a worship center here in California, matter of fact, in 2023, November 2023. And he said there was a woman who attempted to slide her business card to him, which read, "Call me." And the woman who would become his fiance approached him, and she said, "Hey, I really like your podcast." And I was like, "Oh, thank you so much." So this bride that he has, she made the first move. And although the first move she made was, "I really like your podcast," she was the one that approached him. So I guess, ladies, this is a hint to you to say, hey, if you see a guy you like, I guess you ought to strike up a conversation. What's this teaching you? And then I don't know why he told us about the other woman that said she slipped me her business card to said, "Call me, DM me." You see, I think I'm just too much of a deep thinker. Maybe I'm overthinking it. I mean, why didn't you just start with the story that said, "My future wife walked up to me and said, I like your podcast"? Why do we have to start with the story that, oh yeah, it was a whole bunch of women coming up to me. One of them was trying to slide into my DMs. You see what I'm telling you is giving me? So anyway, he starts with the story that it was a whole nother woman who was trying to get with me. And then my wife, who's supposed to be my wife, she also came up to me. So here I am, this well-recognized, famous person now. And I got women always coming at me. And then this woman, she came at me too. And he said, "Oh, thank you so much." And then before I knew it, I grabbed her hand and I walked out of the church with her into the lobby. And he said, at that moment, I was like, I caught myself. And I said, "Oh my God, I just grabbed her hand. She may have a boyfriend or she may be married." Okay. So a woman walks up to you and she says, "I really like your podcast." And your first inclination, your first instinct was to grab her hand and walk her outside. And what you're saying is, at that time, I didn't even know if she had a boyfriend, if she was married. Her husband could have been at the church and he had just gone to the men's room. And oh my goodness. Does this happen in real life, y'all? Single men, I'm gonna ask you right now, if a woman came up to you and said something, would you first try to figure out if she was married or had a husband before you grabbed her hand and took her outside? He said, "I don't know nothing about this woman. What made me grab her hand like that?" I guess he gonna say Jesus made me do it. Jesus spoke to me and made me do it. But lucky for him, she wasn't spoken for. And the two ended up speaking for a bit in the lobby and found out they were both acquainted with one of the guests who was being featured on the podcast that day. So this lady also knew, I guess, a guest that Lateris was going to be interviewing later on his podcast. And then she suggested they all go out to eat. Okay. So the woman approached him. Okay. He grabs her hand, takes her outside. She suggests the first date, a double date with this other couple that's going to be on his podcast. He then says, "Why don't you DM me to make it happen?" Damn. So she got to DM him to make it happen. And also, he said he wanted her to DM him so that people wouldn't see him asking for her number, attracting attention. Because I already done grabbed her hand. So let me get this straight, Lateris. A woman says, "Oh, I like your podcast." You don't know if she's married or if she's taken for, but you grab her hand, you take her outside, you drag her outside. You talk to her for a while. She says, "Oh yeah, we ought to all go get something to eat." And you think that if you ask her for her number, that's going to draw attention versus the fact that you dragged her outside. Okay. Then she has to DM you to DM you because you want to keep everything private and a secret. Just like this bride reveal for the Masked Singer. Ugh. After waiting with anticipation, she would finally DM him. He said he was waiting with anticipation. Although they didn't go out to dinner with her friends, of course not, because the lady didn't really want to go out to friends. She was just trying to do that to have the couple dinner. But the lady got game, I guess. I guess you could say she got game. Good for her. The two met up for coffee before Whitfield had to fly back home. So originally they were supposed to go to dinner, but I guess maybe the young lady DM'd him for dinner, but Lateris was busy, couldn't make dinner, had a busy schedule. He couldn't do it. So he told her, I can't meet you for dinner like I said, but we can go get a cup of coffee for 20 minutes. Because he had to fly back home and he only had 20 minutes to spare. But it was enough to make a lasting impression. And he says, for over a year and a half, we were platonic friends. She would call me, ask me for advice about guys, and that she was dating or dating. And I was dating women. And it was just like, you know what? I really like her. I think there's something more here. So let me get this right. She came up to you. She said, I like your podcast. She approached you first. You grabbed her hand, took her outside. She said, let's go to dinner with my friends. You say, yeah, you DM me. She says, oh, okay, I'll DM you. She DMs you, says, hey, what time you want to go to dinner? You obviously don't respond back in time to really make no dinner plans. I don't know what happened. Then you say, I can't make dinner, but I can meet you for 20 minutes before I catch my flight. You meet her for 20 minutes for coffee. After 20 minutes for coffee, you were like, okay, I'm a friend zone you. I'm a friend zone you for a year and a half. And while I'm friend zoning you for a year and a half, you're going to talk to me about all the guys you've been dating. I'm going to talk about all the women I'm dating. And then after a year and a half, I'm going to look at you and I'm going to be like, you all right. I guess you all right. I guess you all right. Maybe there's something here. It wasn't even like there is something here. He didn't even say he was in love after a year and a half. He just said after a year and a half, he finally looked up and said, maybe there's something here. Wow. Then he said after a talk with his therapist was the one who encouraged him to make a move. Does Lateris live in fear? So let me get this right. All along this journey, Lateris really talks about a lot of moments full of fear. The first fear was when the woman said, I like your podcast. And what he did was he grabbed her right away and went outside. Because really what he was afraid of was to talk to her in public. That was the first fear. He was so afraid. But what's wrong? He's single though. What's wrong with a single man? Just because you got a podcast, what's wrong with a single man talking to another single woman? Why would that be wrong or odd? So I don't understand the hiding. I don't understand why just because he was talking to you because you came up to him, he had to take you outside behind the bushes and talk to you. Then once he talked to you and he said, you DM me, I don't want to DM you. Another secret. Then, no, we can't go to dinner with other people. We can't go to dinner together. We got to go to a coffee shop and I got to only meet you for 20 minutes. Then I got to keep you as a platonic friend for a year and a half, which probably no one even knew you all was talking. And now we are engaged, but now I got to keep you even more of a secret when nobody gets to see you except for your hand. This is weird. And then, even after a year and a half, Lateris has to talk to his therapist, who is the one who has to encourage him to make this move. Ooh. Most people, let me tell you something, when a man is in love with a woman, most of the time his friends are probably telling him, man, you got to think this through a little bit more. You got to think it through a little bit more. When a man is really in love with a woman, do you need a therapist to encourage you? Unless the therapist knows that Lateris is dealing with a lot of fear. And this goes back to what I've talked about, men who are older and unmarried. A lot of them carry deep wounds of hurt and fear, and they're afraid of getting hurt again. I know women, we're afraid of getting hurt again, but some of the wounds that men carry from past relationships and hurt are even deeper than your own. And sometimes it makes it very hard for them to trust and love a woman again. Some men have been hurt when they are in their early 20s and they never recover. And when I hear Lateris and I hear all the steps that he's taking, all of this secrecy, all of this hiding, all of this needing the woman to go through all these extra steps in order to make him feel comfortable, it comes across as a scared man who's still carrying deep wounds. And he has a therapist, so hopefully he's doing that. But this goes back to what I'm talking about, where I always say on some of the shows, on some of his shows, I always felt there was such a big emphasis on making the woman so perfect that it takes all of the fears away from the man, right? Because everybody wants a perfect diamond, just like that ring, where there are no flaws. I think this ring is 7.5 carats, but marriage isn't about the perfect diamond. No woman is perfect. So when we require perfection, because we're requiring perfection, because really what we want is we don't want any risk. In a lot of ways, that's what this is giving. It's giving me a person who wants little bitty risk in marriage, who's afraid. And so therefore things got to stay a secret. They got to stay hidden. But yet he also wants to enjoy it. So he still wants to do the photo shoot, right? He still wants to be able to do interviews. He still wants to be able to talk about it. But there must be something in his head that says, what if this goes wrong? What if, like he said, someone comes along and puts an imprint in the cement that hasn't cured yet and messes it up before he sealed the deal? And so he's protecting it, but it's not coming from a place of protecting the woman. It's actually coming from a place of protecting himself. And that's what I'm getting after. I see the steps he's taking, but all the steps honestly do not feel like they're for the woman. To me, they feel like they're for him. And that's kind of the point I'm making. Does this mean it diminishes the fact that he's in love with her? No, it doesn't diminish that. It doesn't diminish that at all. It still just means that on this healing journey that Lateris is on, he still has a lot more healing to do. And that's what I want the message to be about women, to women. You see, because a lot of women right now could be thinking, oh, this woman found the perfect man and he found the perfect woman. No, Lateris still has wounds. And so that wife of his, in her love for him, which is great, she's marrying a wounded man. And so what I want women to see is that there is no perfect man and there is no perfect woman. So when he says he's not settling, and when women say they're not settling, she is settling for a wounded man. Lateris is wounded. You can see the fear in every story that he tells. The story is about puffing himself up and also exposing all his fears along the way of this relationship. It is a fearful, and I think what he did to himself, which is fine, he said, listen, Lateris, you're not going to sit on the sideline and be so scared that you don't get into the game. And what he said was, I'm going to give myself a time limit. You ever about to jump in a pool and you know the pool is a little bit cold, or the ocean, and you sit on the side of the pool, you go, okay, I'm going to jump in on 3. 1, 2, 3. Or you count to 10. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and 10, and you jump in. That's Lateris. When he said, I'm going to be married at the end of 2025, he said 2021, 2022, 2023, 2024, 2025, and he jumped in the pool because he didn't want his fear to keep him stuck on the sideline for a lot of years. So this isn't to diminish their love. It is not to do what he said that he thinks people will do, which is to poo-poo on their union. No. The reason why I'm making this video is because in this whole scheme to present to the public that this is perfect, the bride is perfect, the groom is perfect, this ring is perfect, look at me, these poems I'm writing are perfect, this song I'm dedicating is perfect, this is so perfect Netflix ought to make a movie out of it. In all this perfectness, you know what is covering up? A flawed man who is scared and who still carries deep wounds surrounding love. And this will come out in his marriage. And it's okay, because he will have a wife and she will have to deal with it and she'll have to learn how to work with it, but it's there. And so if you get anything from this video, don't buy into the notion that people are not settling out here. Everyone is settling. Everyone is settling with someone who already has a wound in them that still has not been healed. And when you come into their life, you can come into their life and help them heal that wound, or you can come into their life and make it worse. And what it sounds like Lateris is saying is that he found a woman that has come into his life and, as he said, is willing to accept me as I am. And when I say as I am, it's with all the flaws. Don't get distracted, ladies. Don't get distracted by the flowery words, the flowers, the beautifulness. Because Lateris what's the name? Whitfield, whatever his name is, he's a scared man. He is a scared man, but that's okay. Congratulations to them both. And I hope they have a wonderful wedding, a reveal, mass singer reveal, and I wish them all the happiness in the world. But let's not send the wrong messages to people out here. Let's be really responsible with marriage and not send people into marriage with false expectations, because false expectations is what leads to early divorces. It does. Anyway, that's it. Talk to y'all later. Bye.